What's going on, guys? Welcome back into the film room. I'm your host, Eric Turner. I am joined again by Anthony Prohaska of Disguise Coverage and the Cover One Sports Network. Anthony, welcome back into the film room, buddy.
Thank you very much. And how dope was that intro? I'm all pumped. I feel like we need to take the field now. That was really good. That was good stuff.
No, I know, right? Sorry, guys, we're a few minutes late. I'm trying to get our precious remote for the film room to work, but for some reason it didn't want to pair today. So we're still gonna move on. We're gonna break down a bunch of film. I appreciate everyone tuning in. Obviously, big divisional playoff win for the Bills over the Ravens. Awesome game plan by Leslie Frazier and some good stuff from Brian Dable as well. But we're gonna focus on the defensive side tonight. But we are gonna start off with just a little roll call. I know a bunch of you guys have already been in there. Talking about where you guys are tuning in from. We appreciate that. So make sure to throw in what city, what state, what country you guys are tuning in from while we kind of get warmed up here and get everyone in the chat box and the film room to break down some of this footage this week. So, Anthony, again, you're back in Buffalo now. Talk about that win in Buffalo and, what the city's like right now.
Dude, it's Saturday. I was out and about a little bit, had to do some running, and everyone was just wearing Bills gear everywhere. Even the people like you would least expect, like all the way from infants all the way up to like grandmas and grandpas. Like everybody was just decked out full Bills gear, like jerseys, hats, sweatshirts, pants. I saw a lot of people rocking red and blue Nikes to like match the Bills gear that they were wearing. That was cool just to set the tone. And then seeing the energy yesterday, I had to do some running. I did some stuff in the morning before the Chiefs game. And same thing, everybody just throwing out go Bills to each other left and right. And same thing today. It's just really cool to see the excitement. Again, I've said it so many times. I was just a tiny little baby during the 4 straight Super Bowls in the 90s. So I've never experienced the buzz that my uncles and aunts and dad and mom and older cousins and brothers and sisters would talk about when the Bills went to 4 straight. So this is the closest thing I've ever gotten to that and tasting that. And it's awesome. And the city and the towns and the suburbs, everything it's a really cool atmosphere, a really cool environment. And it's legitimately something special. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm happy for you, you to be back home and experiencing this. I'm jealous, to be honest. I'm about 6.5 hours away. So, but obviously I was going nuts in my living room for this win. There was it was a tight fought game. I mean, like 2 really good teams, 2 really well-coached teams, some really good schemes. Obviously playmakers on both sides of the ball for these teams. Very similar teams and organizations. And I know that the Bills and their front office with Brandon Beane and Joe Shine and all of those guys, the Ravens are one of those organizations that they want to emulate, right?
Oh, for sure. They have been such a model of consistency in Baltimore for so long, even just when Ozzie Newsome took over and just their initial draft with Ogden and Ray Lewis. And ever since then, good coaching, both from the head coaching position and assistant coaches, quality players they've drafted so well. That's how you stay on top for a long time. And they've built a quality organization from the field up to the front office. And the Bills are trending in that direction and have a quality front office and have quality leadership and talent now. And I think emulating that is for sure a thing that has started to happen. And like you said, this was a game. A lot of Bills fans were nervous coming into this game. I was nervous, and you saw the media, although I don't like to point to the media, but a lot of them it was kind of like a 50-50 toss-up in terms of who was going to win. Baltimore was coming in hot, and again, they're a quality organization. They have so much talent, and if they played up to that talent, they could do some damage, and the Bills have been a quality unit in all 3 phases all year, and it was a really good clash in terms of 2 good teams, both coming in hot, both playing well. Confidence was high for both teams, and I think that's why you saw that back and forth in terms of who people thought was going to win and why you felt that anxiety and that nervousness and sensed it and saw it in both fan bases going into the game.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that all of that stuff. It's obviously a big home win for the Bills. The best part of this was how the broadcasters and commentators had acknowledged Bills Mafia being on site, 6,700 strong, in the big stage, divisional playoff round, and they obviously were a huge factor in this game. You heard the center for the Ravens after the game say that they had to go to a silent count, that it was so loud in there. Kaiir said that the environment on top of, the crowd, the environment with the wind and some of the, flurries before the game played a factor on those snaps as well, I'm sure. And some of the throws that you saw from Lamar and Josh Allen. So I thought there was some cool, I know a lot of people are talking dome right now, but I mean, I'm old school. I like that, those sort of things pop up because that's what football is all about. It's adjusting to not just your environment, not just who's across the line from you, but adjusting to all different types of, stimuli that is thrown at you during a game. And the environment, the weather, and playing outside is something that's always been there with football. And I personally like it. I mean, I'm not going to be mad if they decide to go to a dome years down the line, but this is the way it is right now. This is the way it's going to be this weekend against the Chiefs. So I was actually, wasn't surprised that, some people had issues with this. A lot of guys aren't used to playing in cold weather, whether there's some flurries, whether it's, those wind gusts that Orchard Park is known for. I like that element of football.
Yeah, me too. There's something special about it. I want it taken one step further. I want the turf gone and I want grass. I love that cold weather, muddy, dirty. There's just something about like late fall, winter playoff football when two teams are slugging it out and it's dirty and the field is getting torn up and the weather adds so much to it. There's so many games where the weather is just added to it and adds for ambiance and atmosphere and it can really add so much from like a setting perspective to a game. And then to your point from actual logistics, I like it as well, even though I know the Bills' strength is the passing team, and we don't want to run into games where the wind can potentially affect Josh Allen and affect the team. I like the added wrinkle that gets thrown into those games with the weather from time to time. Because again, this league is about how do you counter and how do you adjust and how do you flip your scheme or change things up when you're met with a new obstacle and you're met with a new challenge. And it adds another layer and it may come to bite you in the butt every once in a while, but I think it really shapes a lot of teams and really shows what teams and coaching staffs and players are truly made of when you're able to face situations that might not be ideal for you and might be more ideal for your opponent, like it was for the Bills this weekend against the Ravens with the win. And I feel even more confident now about this Bills win because we went into a game against a good team, against a quality organization in conditions that were much more suitable for Baltimore than it was for us. And we played our game and we came out on top. So it makes me feel even stronger. I'm same with you. I'm cool with the dome, but no, give me the snow and the weather and the cold. It's playoff football, man. I don't want a dome.
No, I mean, like I said, I don't really care. I think that you're right, as far as the leverage that it gave teams like, you saw Lamar try to throw the ball. We're going to get to Lamar later, but you saw him throw the ball when he eventually did, because that first drive was a lot of runs. But I think that was obviously by design, but they know Lamar better than anyone. And that first throw was out to the flats, and it was only a few yards past the line of scrimmage, but it was out wide. And it was just like, whoa, the wind almost took that one. So they know Lamar better than any of us. But I think that you're right. Those are the elements. They're going to be there. And like I said, if they want to go to a dome, I don't care. Of course, the players are going to want a dome. Yeah. I mean, they're gonna probably echo the sentiments that Kurt Warner was talking about on a couple days ago. So I mean, of course they're gonna want it. If I were playing, I'd want natural grass, and I don't care if it's a dome or if it's open, as long as there's natural grass. As a former running back, I like natural grass, and I hated turf. And so I think everyone has their different preferences, but obviously the environment and the wind specifically had a major factor in this game, but it didn't stop Brian Daboll from calling. How many straight passes did he call, Anthony? I mean, goodness.
So the Buffalo Bills started out the game. This is how it went in the first half. The Bills started out with 14 straight passes. Then they had a run, which wasn't a called run. It was a Josh Allen scramble. After that scramble, we followed up with 5 more passes, then a run to Devin Singletary, and then 5 more passes to end the first half. So 14 straight passes, and to end the first half, 23 passes to only 2 runs. And again, one of those runs was a scramble by Josh Allen.
Yeah.
So not a called run. So basically 24 passes and 1 run in the first half. Daboll is a madman.
Yeah, and he came out today in his presser and said that Josh Allen, he was asked about Josh Allen, how he thought he played. And he basically said he played the way he needed to play to help us win the game. I mean, he obviously has confidence in Josh Allen's arm, his ability to throw in the elements, and you saw some of those passes that were down the field, vertical game, and he missed, and a lot of that was the wind. A lot of it was also Josh probably amped a little bit. There's several factors that go into that, but he was not afraid to throw the ball down the field. And I think McDermott also mentioned in his presser right after the game, I believe, or maybe it was even today, that they kind of got away from their original game plan, and that kind of made it sound like, okay, they went a little overboard in that department. But I mean, I didn't really have a problem with it. And that this is coming from a guy who again, former running back, and I'm more old school than new school, but I realize the quarterback the Bills have now and what he can do with his arms and his legs. So I'm all for, the game plan of having to throw it that often, but they did in the second half. They balanced it out a little more on that touchdown drive, and that was nice to see. Got Singletary going a little bit. I also liked the pass heavy approach because of what the Ravens decided to do with Martindale and not really pressure send blitzes, those exotic blitzes that I had been showing everyone in the Slack channel all week. I think that also played into that strategy because, like, hey, if they're not rushing 5-6 guys, if they're just dropping back, like, we need to take advantage of this right now. So let's keep passing and let's wear down those 4 rushers who they have very good front four. If they want to rush with Campbell and Ngakoue and Madubuike, Judon, like those are 4 really solid rushers, and they rotate guys in as well. Wolf, it really played to that approach of, okay, Brian's like, you know what, if they're only rushing 4, now's the time to get some of those chunk yards. But I mean, to the Ravens' credit and Martindale, they held the offense in check for the most part.
Yeah, I think the way Baltimore came out, to your point, is what changed that scheme a little bit. You highlighted it in the Slack channel and on Twitter, and Greg and I talked about it in Disguised Coverage. Greg and Aaron talked about it on the Cover One Buffalo podcast. There was everyone and their mother was talking about how are we going to handle Baltimore's blitz and how do the Bills do against man coverage and what Josh Allen's percentages are against the blitz and so on and so forth. And then the Ravens came out and were like, no, we recognize that we blitz the most in the league. We're just going to rush 4. And that first drive, I was kind of like, okay, but they'll blitz. And then the game just kept going, and they would show blitz, but they would really just rush 4. And if they blitzed, it was maybe bringing a 5th guy. And when they do that, and you're a pass-heavy team like the Bills are, and you've been successful with the pass, I think exactly to your point, it entices you more to be like, well, like, look what they're giving us. Let's just take advantage of it. And to Daboll's credit, it was there. Allen just missed some throws in the first
and they
half.
were with the win, I believe, right? So they were,
Correct.
I think they started left to right. So again, I think that plays into it. And Daboll kind of talked about that today and how the weather did play a factor. And I watched the Ravens post-game presser with Harbaugh, and he said the same thing. And so you gotta take those factors into account. I see a lot of people talking about it, but not really understanding from a coordinator's perspective on why you do that. Oh my God, they're not blitzing 50% of the time like they had been all year. They're only rushing 4. Well, now's the time. We have the win. Like, now's the time to throw, like you said, several passes in a row.
Yeah, and I think with the not to bang that drum, but Daboll's also going to have confidence in his guys. Cole Beasley led the league in yards from the slot. He had one of the best slot receiving yardage seasons in the last 5-10 years. Stephon Diggs led the league in catches and yards. And Josh Allen is an MVP candidate. And Gabe Davis is no slouch. I'm sorry, Gabriel Davis. He likes to go by Gabriel Davis.
Yeah.
And John Brown is very good. Like, the Bills are a passing offense. And then Baltimore on top of that kind of gives that to you. You're going to believe in your team. You're going to dance with the girl that brought you, which is the passing game, and go for it a little more. Granted, it just didn't work out. There were some missed throws, but the opportunities were there. And I'm a fan of balance. I like running and I like the pass and run being close. Like, give me like a 70-30 share, but at the very least be able to run when you need to. So I'm never going to be that guy that's going to be upset when more runs are called, although I recognize the analytics that, larger scale passing offenses are more deadly and effective in today's NFL. Fully recognize that and agree with it. So this is also coming from a guy who likes to see the run, but I didn't really have any qualms with Daboll's attack in that first half. The opportunities were there. We just didn't execute on the plays that were called due to, honestly, really good defense from Baltimore. Marlon Humphrey had a fantastic game.
Awesome.
And so did their safeties, which I didn't expect. Chucky Clark and Elliott did well. They did well in coverage as a team, especially on Diggs and Beasley. And then you add in the win factor on top of it, and we just weren't able to capitalize. But I don't necessarily think Dable I recognize that he went a little nuts and kind of cranked it up to 100 really quick and decided to pass his mind off. But yeah, I don't have too many qualms with it.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, 4-man rushes, and you're wearing those rushers down when you're passing that often. And, it does take a toll on them. I thought the offensive line. Let's start with them real quick. Briefly talk about how well a job they did. They did a really good job. A lot of times, Dawkins and Williams were isolated out wide by themselves. A lot of times, you saw Bakker matched up with Campbell, and he held up. I thought the offensive line did a great job of not only keeping the depth of the pocket, which is, the interior offensive line, the centers and guards are really responsible for. And they have some really strong guys that are big, strong guys, but they also have guys that can play with leverage and drive the pocket. And again, the tackles, they did such a great job. And it was, highlighted during the game of keeping the width of that pocket. That is what their job is on the offensive line during a pass rep, is to keep the width of the pocket. And I thought they did a great job of doing that. And then when they did run some of those stunts, which they didn't do a lot of, which, again, I was very surprised to see. When they did run those stunts, they were picked up relatively well. And then the guys that were picking up that late looper, what they were doing, it was clearing them out so that Josh could see the field. But as you said, man, the back end held up really well. But who stood out to you on the offensive line? Maybe a specific play, or who stood out to you on the offensive line versus the Ravens?
There was, I think, to start with, one of the captains of this team and a guy who gets a ton of love, Dion Dawkins. He was highlighted multiple times during the game. I was a little worried coming into this one. I thought Baltimore, now that they were getting healthier, and I recognized the production hadn't been holistically there from the front four, but like you mentioned, they've got horses up front. Campbell is still a monster, and Ngakoue still has the talent, and Judon is a force. Yeah. So that edge aspect was always on my mind, and Dion Dawkins held up tremendously. I know right after they highlighted him, he gave up a sack.
Yeah.
So that was a little bad.
They were just jinxing people left and right.
Dude, they did it to Tucker. Like, they were so bad. And Dawkins played well. Darrell Williams played well. But honestly, that interior, I love Mitch Morse, but the guard play is what has always concerned me all year, whether or not how Cody Ford would do, waiting for Feliciano to come back. And then Ford goes down, and it's like, okay, is it Winters? Is it Bodker? And then there was so much talk with Winters and Bodker that it was just like, well, they're basically interchangeable. It's kind of 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. It's the same thing. But Bodker, he's not an all-pro. He's not killing it, but he has played pretty solid football at that guard position. And Feliciano, for as much as a mauler that he is in the run game, his pass pro isn't necessarily his strong suit. Right. But both of them, good footwork on Saturday against Baltimore, and again, against studs up front, guys that can move the pocket, guys that can drive you back, guys that have multiple pass rushing weapons in their arsenal combined with speed and size and strength. I obviously wanted the line to protect Josh Allen, but if they got beaten on a decent amount of pass reps, I wouldn't have killed them for it. Baltimore's got a good front four and they know how to rush, but that line really, and I hate to give the answer, you asked who impressed me up front. Honestly, the whole line.
The unit.
The unit. To give Josh Allen the time, and you hit it right on the head, to keep those passing lanes clear and to be able to widen the pocket consistently and give Josh time and vision and allow him to just pick his poison and pick his target. The reason it just didn't work out more is because we got to give credit to Baltimore's back end and the back seven that we're covering when the front four was rushing. The offensive line did their job relatively for a heavy amount of the football game and gave Josh the time. We just, again, weren't able to execute due to some weather factors combined with the well-schemed and well-executed game that the Baltimore back end did. But as a unit, again, this is a unit. We came in Josh's rookie year. The offensive line was terrible and his weapons were terrible. And through free agency and the draft and some smart moves, we have solidified this offensive line, and it's not the best in football, but it is by no means a weakness, and it is getting close to being a strength and a supporting complement of this team. And I was really impressed with the unit as a whole. Yeah,
I thought Brian summed it up. I wouldn't say they're elite pass blockers, but they're very good pass blockers. And their run blocking is spotty. It needs a lot of work. And I'm sure with how pass heavy this team wants to be with Josh Allen, the weapons they have outside, I think most of their time is dedicated to blitz protection and passing. It's not like Greg Roman's days, where I remember Incognito used to tell me every week, like, they spent so much time on that complex run game and finding the answers in the run game versus the defensive front rather than the passing game. And you kind of saw that play out on the Ravens as well. So I want to, kind of answer this question. Was Beasley open and not just targeted? No, let's talk about that, because you kind of touched upon it, man. The coverage on the back end was phenomenal. Mm-hmm. Humphrey shut down Beasley for pretty much an entire game, but Humphrey also shut down basically anyone that Josh was looking to go to. I mean, he was all over the obviously the slot player, but there were times where there were plays designed to attack the coverage that the Ravens had, but somehow there was a switch on the back end between Humphrey and Peters, or Humphrey and one of the safeties, and Humphrey ended up on the primary target and just shut him down. I mean, there were plays, the play that Davis caught the touchdown, that was a switch. Like, that wasn't Humphrey on Davis initially. It happened several times. It happened when they tried, faking that screen to McKenzie in the red zone and hitting him again, Davis again. Like, that was just phenomenal. Like, how great a job Humphrey did against any of the receivers, really. I mean, he pretty much shut down any of the Bills receivers and was probably one of the best players on the field overall.
Oh, 1,000%. He deserves, and it's a shame also, even though he doesn't know that wings were made in Buffalo and he thinks they're called Buffalo wings, but I guess he gets a pass for that. He played really well. He had a strong game, exactly like you said. Anytime that he was in the frame and Allen was throwing to somebody that he was covering, Humphrey was right there in the receiver's pocket. It didn't matter who it was. He had a phenomenal game. And to piggyback on that Beasley point, Baltimore really made an effort to focus on him and not let him get the ball. We saw a lot of linebackers underneath and inside, Diggs as well, but even more Beasley. They showed a couple times where Beasley would run his option route or come out of the slot, and you would see that outside corner on his outside. But then as soon as Beasley would turn inside, you'd see Patrick Queen shimmying right over. So they had him
defender dropping into the rat area. Like, you're right, man. They had him bracketed really well, and they did it a few times with Diggs where they shaded a safety over to that side or rotated late, like you saw. I think it was the first deep pass that Allen tried hitting versus Peters there. But you're right, man. They did a good job of bracketing. And when I started to peek at the old the film from the Kansas City game, they were doing some similar things, and that's obviously something that we're gonna have to pay attention to. But yeah, Humphrey, man, he was on his game, man. You could tell he studies film, and he's physical, but he also has good feet. He's a guy, obviously, I loved coming out of the draft. I thought he did a great job, and like I said, man, it's like Josh would get to his second, third, and fourth reads in his progression. It's like, there's Humphrey. Like, man, it was incredible. And obviously, he was pretty much doing a Dikembe Mutombo, like, no. So who else stood out to you before we flip over the defense? Who else stood out to you on the Bills offense, or any other topics or narratives that really kind of stood out to you on the offensive side?
Easy, low-hanging fruit, Stephon Diggs. When I think the Beasley point that we just got off of, for the year that Diggs has had, and he deserves the recognition for it. Right. Cole Beasley has been such a tremendous security blanket for Josh Allen. And this goes back to the season before in the preseason. And the reason Cole Beasley was rising up fantasy football charts, because he was getting like 8 catches a game in the preseason, and Allen just kept finding him. And to have somebody that you can realistically and reliably get 5 to 8 yards from anytime you look towards him is a tremendous thing for an offense, and it's a massive security blanket for a quarterback. And the Ravens came out and almost made Beasley priority number 1. And whenever Josh needed a big throw, he went to Diggs. We saw Diggs beat Jimmy Smith. Oh, it's such a beautiful route on that third down, that speed cut outside. We saw him shake Baltimore defenders. Not Marlon Humphrey all the time, who had a tremendous game, but we saw when there was a crunch time critical play that had to be made, Diggs got open in a variety of ways. This game to me was really, although he's had several, was a microcosm of why you get a number 1 receiver and what Stephon Diggs brings to this team, which is he's not the biggest, he's not the fastest, he's not the strongest, but his route running and his footwork and his ability to change speeds and change pace and disguise his routes is just a work of art, and it's a chef's kiss every day of the week. And he got open in a variety of ways against a variety of coverages. And he really, again, I think it's low-hanging fruit, but he stood out to me so big just for the effort that he put through. And honestly, John Brown as well. He had some big catches, some nice sideline grabs. The first thing I thought of when Allen had that throw, as he's done all year, where he rolls to the right and just puts it on a dime down the sideline. And John Brown did what he didn't do last year against Houston in the playoffs, catch it and get both tippy toes down. It was really nice. It was a really technically sound catch. He stepped up as well when called upon. They were my two highlights on the offense.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Brown because I honestly thought that guy was going to be Davis in this game. And I mentioned on Twitter today, I love how Brian Daboll is scheming plays. He's creating plays for Davis. He had 3 or 4 shot plays where it was a leak concept where he blocked and then he came across and then got up the numbers, but Humphreys was on him. So that was shut down. Again, like obviously he probably could have had a touchdown. He needs to obviously bring that in. I like some of the plays that Daboll is scheming out for Davis, and I think that it's important for him to be involved, but it's also important for Brown because, again, when you have teams that are going to do what the Ravens did and what the Chiefs have done, what the Patriots done, what the Bills have done to opposing receivers, in finding ways to bracket the number one target for the opposing team, you're going to get that with Beasley in the slot or Diggs out wide. And you're going to need that third or fourth receiver to make some big plays. And we saw that versus the Colts a couple weeks ago where Josh got outside of the pocket and Davis, worked the boundaries really well. We saw it this week on the comeback routes and working the boundary with John Brown being late in the progression. Like those guys are going to have to step up. Like that's why they got him. That's why they need these weapons healthy. John Brown to be healthy and Davis to catch the ball when he has those opportunities. Man, he probably could have had 4 or 5 more touchdowns this year if he just held on to the ball.
Yeah, he's had a couple games where he's pulling out these circus catches, and I don't want to make a Dawson Knox reference because he's not as bad as that, but he's made some difficult catches that he has no business making, and then he's dropping some that you're just like, oh, dude, right in your mitts. And that first one, that drop in the end zone, was killing me all game. And again, we've talked about him so much. Credit to Humphrey for tremendous coverage on that play. He was right there in his hip pocket, and he almost got a piece of it. But that hit Davis right in the hands. And I'm always a fan of like catch the ball however you want. But as soon as he dropped it and I saw the replay and saw that his hands were like this instead of his hands being like this, I just yelled at the TV. I was like, turn your hands around. And
it was frustrating, too, because Josh looked at Diggs to the bottom of the screen. He looked at Diggs, and that safety jumped Diggs. So he came over the top, and Josh did it perfectly. He got his eyes right down the middle, threw it right to him. It was on point, and it was dropped. Like, there are only so many of those plays in the playoffs. Like, that margin for error, you can't have it. You just can't have it. And, again, he's made a lot of way more good plays for them. I mean, every time we've done this film room, Davis has been mentioned in a good light. So, I mean, but you got to make those plays, and him or Brown they're going to have to make those plays against the Chiefs. No doubt about it. One of those guys is going to make a really big play that could lead to points or put points on the board or change the momentum of a game. Like they got to have that. So, with that said, guys, like I said at the top, we appreciate you joining us. We're going to get into the defensive side and the game plan from Leslie Frazier. And I want to start off with a quote from Matt Milano that leading into the game, because he had said something that a lot of Ravens fans ended up, retweeting. And I'm sure some of the Ravens players got to see. He says, we're pretty confident in being able to contain him. And on top of what Jerry Hughes had said, how they are planning on being a little more aggressive and not, playing him the same way in regards to the zone read as last year. Like there was a lot of talking. I mean, even Martindale got in on that and said that they know who we are. We're going to blitz, yada, yada, yada. So there was a lot of gamesmanship going on, but there's a lot of truth to that. A lot of what was said too. So I want to get your thoughts on starting with, obviously the man that touches the ball every single play, and that's Lamar Jackson, and get your thoughts off the top of your head in regards to how they stopped and contained him.
Beautiful scheme, beautifully executed. And not to pat ourselves on the back, but you and I last week in the film room against reviewing the Bills-Colts game, we talked about some really good plays that the Bills had against the Colts that exhibited team defense and gap integrity and everybody doing their 111th and flowing to the ball as a team and maintaining their role and not getting outside of their individual role and executing. We talked about how key that would be against the Baltimore Ravens because of their running style, because of their offensive style, and because of what they do. And Buffalo answered the call, not so much on the first drive, which we're going to get into, but everybody doing their part. This is an offense and this is a player in Lamar Jackson where if you get too excited and you decide you're going to try and go make a play, you can leave that one hole open and Lamar's going to find it and he can house it in a hurry. You need to maintain your gap integrity, maintain your rush lanes. You may not be the one who makes the tackle or even gets on the camera footage, but you maintaining your gap might be the reason that Lamar decides to give it to the running back on the read, or it maybe is the reason that he keeps it and you catch him from the backside because you came crashing down like you were supposed to. There's a multitude of ways to stop this defense or stop this offense defensively, but it can't happen unless you're playing team defense. And that was my biggest thing and what I loved. When the Bills started to get cooking on defense after that first drive, you saw flow to the football from everyone. You saw man on man, hat on a hat, and everybody rallying and being relentless in getting to the ball carrier, especially when it was Lamar. And that's what you need to do. I understand the jokes about, oh, he can't throw and he's got a bad arm. Haha. He's one of the most electric players, if not the most electric player in the NFL. And the Bills shut him down on Saturday. And it wasn't just because of one person, although several players on the Bills defense had good games. It was due to the collective effort of everyone from the starting 11 to the rotational pieces and the snaps that everyone got. It took a team effort from the coaching scheme down through the players, and it was beautifully called and beautifully executed. And the effort and team-minded attack was beautiful.
Yeah, the scheme, the execution was on point. I mean, coming into this game, the 6-game win streak that the Ravens were on, Jackson was carrying the ball at 8.1 yards per attempt on outside runs, outside the tackles during that streak. I mean, that is a crazy number, and they obviously wanted to come out early and run the ball, and that included with Jackson. The Bills held him to 6 rushes for 12 yards outside the tackle. Like, that is phenomenal. That is a stat from Next Gen. They did a great job. And that first drive, the Ravens came out and did some things that were slightly against their tendencies. Like, they're in pistol, and they had Lamar open up certain ways that and run certain counters and counter trays that the Bills hadn't seen. I definitely didn't see on film all that often. And it took them some time to, obviously digest the plays that were being thrown at him, but also the speed. They had used McKenzie as the Lamar Jackson role in practice as a scout team quarterback, and he's fast, don't get me wrong, but you heard, I think it was Micah Hyde say that it took them some time to really get up to speed against this offense. And you guys got to understand, this is a unique offense with a unique athlete at quarterback, and you don't see this type of offense every week, and it's a unique offense, and so it takes a unique scheme on the defensive side to really to slow it down. And they didn't just slow it down; they absolutely shut them down. And the Bills last year, when they played them, were really the architects on how to slow down Lamar and limit him. And you saw, obviously, teams replicate it from there on out. And even the Titans last week used a lot of what the Bills used in this game, but I think the Bills were just a lot more aggressive in coming downhill and playing a lot of what I say, cover zero, which a lot of people are like, what does cover zero mean in the run game? And what does it matter? Well, it matters a lot, because that if you're playing cover zero, there's only, so many eligible guys, 5 eligibles. That means all the other players can worry about the run game and accounting for, obviously the offensive lineman and the quarterback. That's 6 guys. So that is important. What coverage you call is actually quite important to how you defend the run. And the Bills called a lot of cover zero and got the front, defensive front, just worried and getting their eyes on Lamar Jackson and shutting them down. I thought they did a great job, and not just in the run game, they did a great job in the passing game too. Hughes, Addison, Murphy did a great job of keying in on the depth of the drop of the quarterback. Obviously, you don't want your edge rushers rushing too far upfield past the spot, because what happens? You saw it against Tannehill. He had some timely runs against the Bills early in the year where our ends were, they were rushing too far upfield at times, past the QB spot, but they also weren't covering for each other. When a defensive tackle rushed upfield, you have to cover for him and not open up the middle of the field, and you're going to see some of these plays that we break down. So talk about the pass rush portion of it and what they did to Lamar Jackson.
There were times in the game against Lamar, and even when the backup was in there as well, you saw when the Bills would just, even when it was just their front four, when they would just pin their ears back and try and get upfield right away, they gave up runs and they gave up scrambles. And to your point, you can't do that. You have to maintain your integrity, maintain your rush lane, and almost, I've been trying to think of the right verbiage for it because I know it exists out there and you probably know it. You almost have to do kind of like a lazy rush where you're just kind of like slushing it a little bit. And we saw that several times on the runs, on the plays where Lamar had nowhere to go, where he had to dance in the backfield or where he got sacked. You'd see Hughes and Addison kind of go upfield, but then take a route inside. And you'd see Ed Oliver kind of pass rush a little, but then just kind of stay and occupy the center, almost as if he was kind of like holding it as a spy inside the middle. And when you combine lazier rushes like that, designed to hem Lamar in and keep him in, and then couple that with the attack-minded approach they also had on the rest of it, it's confusing for him. It's a great way to mix up looks. And the numbers that I wanted to pull out, Lamar, his pressure percentage in this game, he was pressured on 55% of his dropbacks. That's the highest of his career. The Bills blitzed on 48% of the snaps. That is the fourth highest in Lamar's career that he's faced. And the defensive backs, they had a defensive back blitz percentage of 34%, which was also the highest of Lamar Jackson's career that he faced. That's massive. And we saw it. We saw a Levi Wallace sack. We saw a Trey White blitz that led to a stop in the backfield on Dobbins. We saw Taryn Johnson, fan of Taryn Johnson we are, and an altering play for franchise history in Taryn Johnson.
We're going to get to it, guys. Don't worry.
We saw aggressiveness. We saw attack-minded defense. When they blitzed, they would go after Lamar and they would go after him hard. And then at the same time, when they'd rush forward, they'd still go after him, but somebody was still maintaining their lane. Somebody was still maintaining their integrity. And when they would blitz and they would go after him with 6 and 7, if you noticed when they rushed, they would rush Lamar and it was a pass blitz, but they almost came after him like it was a run blitz where everybody was occupying a gap and making sure that Lamar had nowhere to go. He was either going to get the ball out fast and complete it, or he was getting sacked. They took proper angles, and that goes back to our earlier point of the team defense aspect, because if somebody doesn't get their angle right and somebody doesn't take the right gap in the right lane, Lamar makes one guy miss, and then he's up the sideline and he takes off.
Yeah, it was. I'm glad you mentioned the muddle rush is what we used to call it. Where again, it's something that Jim Johnson taught Sean McDermott really well when he was with Philadelphia. Again, you don't want to rush past the quarterback spot, and you also don't want to run too many stunts because again, you'll open those lanes up the middle. And again, we're going to break down a couple of these plays when it comes to securing the pocket, keeping Lamar Jackson in the pocket, making him throw from the pocket. It's something that, obviously, as Bills fans, it's something that a lot of opposing coordinators and players wanted to do with Josh Allen. So without further ado, let's get to the film here, because this is why we're here. We're going to break down some film, and we're going to focus early on with the Bills and obviously, stopping the run, stopping Lamar Jackson and Trent Murphy, man. I mean, I can't recall the last time he actually was activated for a game, but as everyone knows, he had a really good game against Baltimore last year. And when he was in the game against the Ravens here, he had a really good game. He did what a lot of what they did last year was called reading the mesh. So instead of just having him come down and crash on the dive on the running back, he plays it less aggressive. He doesn't go, usually it's the heels of the offensive lineman, read the mesh, and then once he makes that decision, once the quarterback makes that decision, then you go and attack the ball. And it allows the quarterback, it forces him to kind of delay his read of that edge defender, that unblocked defender, but it also allows other guys to get out over the top and the Bills to use their speed, such as Matt Milano. I want you guys to watch Milano and Edmonds and their pursuit on this play, because it's really important that they rally to the ball. And Milano gets outside that blocker, Ricard, who's a 300-pound offensive lineman, basically. But at fullback, it's important that he gets outside of him and leverages the ball to contain him. And then you have your pursuit from Tremaine Edmonds right there. Just really good work by Murphy. And then everyone is rallying. Look at everyone's rallying to the ball to stop Lamar Jackson. And he basically just gives up.
Yeah, this one is the epitome of that team defense aspect. What I love from Trent Murphy here, obviously him reading the mesh point is fantastic. And he comes up properly with good technique. He's on the heels of the lineman there. But watch him, so he sees it. And he knows at this point, freeze it right here, he knows he can't outrace Lamar Jackson. He's not faster than Lamar Jackson. But all he does is keep his feet. Keeps his feet. He makes Lamar have to slow down and dance because Trent Murphy knows that he's got support coming. And this is team defense at its finest. Trent Murphy makes this play, but he could have easily just lost his footing or tried to make the play himself and let Lamar juke him out of his shoes like we saw last year a couple times. All he does is make Lamar make the first move and then have to make another move. And when he goes to try and make another, the support from the rest of the defense comes through in Tremaine and Milano. It's such a beautiful team defense play. And again, it's what we use to stop Lamar. Everybody understanding their role and understanding the bigger picture and how to get this job done.
Kyle, we appreciate it, brother. We appreciate you tuning in. And yeah, you know, we had to give some props to Murphy and our boy Aaron Quinn because everyone knows that Aaron Quinn loves him some Trent Murphy and Levi Wallace. I mean, he sent me a message in the Slack channel saying, man, this was like the game of his life when it came to guys that a lot of people on social media believe that he stands for when really he talks the truth about them a lot and how they are criticized a lot. But Aaron Quinn loves Trent Murphy. Don't let him tell you anything different. No, he was happy, and obviously we were. That was a big play, man. And I can't tell you if that actually was a zone read. I can't say for sure that he was actually reading Murphy here, but it's important because let me get back to the clip here. It's important because I mean, he's obviously Lamar Jackson is thinking that he can beat Murphy to the edge here. Let me bring it up. So right here, I mean, if this is an actual read based on Murphy, what he's doing there, he honestly should be giving. He should be giving this ball to the running back. But whether it's a read or not, maybe he just believes he can get outside of Murphy here. But watch the running back. He has a lane right there if he hands it. So I don't know if this is a true read or not. But either way, Murphy did a great job of containing that play. So let's get to the next play here. And I talked about the coverage having it's a big deal when it comes to the actual run play. And so look at the coverage, guys. It's pretty much zero across the board. And you're going to see the edge rushers or the edge defenders, Taryn Johnson and Matt Milano, otherwise known as force defenders, just blitz. And then everyone else just covers down just in case it is a pass. And this is that counter bash that the Ravens added to their arsenal this year. And what is counter bash? So basically you have two linemen, usually it's a left tackle and left guard, pulling to the right. You have the running back on the right doing a wide zone track to the left. And then generally you're going to see Lamar Jackson reading Mario Addison off the left side here. Usually that's who he's reading. And if he crashes on Lamar Jackson, then he's going to hand it off to the running back. But as you can see, the scheme, the play call, has all of that covered. You have guys on both sides here covering this play. So as Lamar Jackson keeps it here, Addison can close in on it. Obviously, you have outside leverage by the defensive tackle right here. And then look at everyone inside. They're all inside right there to limit this play, this counter bash. The play call is beautiful, and they limit Lamar Jackson. They don't let him get off tackle, which generally this is where those type of plays happen. So Jackson keeps it, and then everyone rallies to the ball. Milano and Addison are in on the tackle on Lamar Jackson.
Lamar has a slight alley and a slight lane, but the Bills defense closes down so quickly that, it's there and it's gone. Like if he can get upfield right there, he doesn't have much of a lane, but he has a slight one. But the defense makes it hard for him to have to get through. And then Addison and Milano crashing down. And this is some of what we talked about earlier in taking proper lanes and proper angles. If Milano comes too far upfield and takes a wrong angle, or Addison takes a wrong angle coming off that edge, oh, thank you so much, Scott. We appreciate you. Thank you so much. And the compliment is tremendous as well. Thank you. That's awesome. You can easily get yourself out of position on this. And with a guy like Lamar, you give him an inch and he can easily take a mile. But what you see is rush lane integrity, gap integrity, more team flow to the ball, proper angles, guys not getting too far upfield, guys knowing their responsibility, knowing the assignment, and knowing what they need to do. And after that first series, you're thinking, okay, Baltimore's going to run it all over us. And then every time Lamar touched it and the running game touched it from then on, they really got shut down, and it was due to those proper angles and that team defense. And it was really a beautiful thing to see.
Yeah, no, Scott, we appreciate it. And we're going to continue on with just stopping the run here. You're going to see a nice stunt off the right side of the screen here by, I believe that's Hughes and Zimmer. And again, look at this defense. With the box stacked with offensive linemen and tight ends by the Ravens, the Bills bring up both of their outside linebackers in basically what is a flex defense. Usually, this is an old school defense, and teams are using it nowadays to really stop outside zone run. You saw the Patriots bust this type of defense out versus the Rams a couple years in the Super Bowl, a couple years ago in the Super Bowl. The Dolphins in the Bills division use it against the Bills because they're a big, heavy outside zone run team. So watch how not just every gap is accounted for, but watch them attack the ball here. Everyone is attacking the run here, and everyone's accounted for. Again, I can't tell you if Lamar is actually reading here, but if he does want to keep it there, the Bills have guys to stop the dive, and then they have guys out here to stop any type of outside run here. And of course, the backside is holding strong as well. So everyone's covered. Lamar hands it off, and now watch everyone just collapse on the ball. That run stunt by the Bills with Zimmer attacking upfield, and then this guy looping over the top to shut down that inside run. Gus Edwards is trying to get up the middle, and Harrison Phillips is in on that. Jerry Hughes is in on that. And it's a cluster up the middle.
Yeah, it's, again, another great example of team defense, and you said it perfectly. And I'm going to go opposite here on the team defense aspect. I want to highlight Zimmer, who gets through so quickly that he not only creates penetration and kind of reestablishes the line, he knocks out a little bit the pulling right tackle. Yep, and disrupts him to the point that puller runs into Gus Edwards, and it mucks up this run a little bit. Look how
level.
Look at that. That's exactly what I was saying. That's kind of, I don't want to make the comparison, but that's some Kyle Williams level, like, angle and height and that get up. And look how he just uses his size and his height and explodes through with that rip to get through and cause a little havoc in the backfield. And the rest
and talk about havoc, dude. It's not just a puller. Again, guys, you remember the bad snaps. Okay, these are the type of plays that created these kind of issues. So watch the center. The guard is pulling. That right guard that Zimmer is over is pulling, and that center has to snap it. Look at the snap. He has to snap it and down block to his right at the same time. And while most people say, okay, who cares? This is actually very difficult. You're moving to your right, which you saw this several times in the game, and it's actually part of the reason why Lamar was knocked out of the game later on. But that down block, because that right guard is pulling, is actually really important here. And Zimmer's quickness and his pad level all played into that. Look at the pad level of that center, man, like that. And I know it's a backup center. He's been playing a little bit this year because he's filling in there. But you're right, man. Zimmer is probably one of the reasons early on in this game that center was so worried about that down block. And it's another reason why the scheme that the Bills sent at them, the defensive front of having all these guys on the line of scrimmage to combat these counters and pulling guards and tackles, really threw a wrench in what the Ravens wanted to do. And this is a new blueprint. This is all new stuff that now teams are going to have on Lamar Jackson and Greg Roman's offense. They're going to have to really fix, because that just loading the box and sending those defenders inside and having guys quick off the ball like Zimmer. I mean, you're right, man. That was a huge reason why these snaps were off.
Yeah, for sure. It's such a small thing, but making the center have to work extra hard. And you nailed it. I feel like people overlook that, like how hard it is to snap the ball and then go and block a guy right away. Like, that's not an easy thing. And Buddy Ryan first started to do with the 46 defense and putting a guy head up on the center and then putting defensive tackles on both guards, because that way it would have to make the center block the nose tackle one-on-one. And
everyone's one-on-one in Bear.
Exactly. And prior to that time in the NFL, dudes didn't want, offensive people and coordinators and coaches didn't want their center to have to block a guy one-on-one because they were like, well, that's a pain in the butt to have to snap the ball and block. And that was a wrinkle back then. And the Bills added a little bit of that. We saw some Bear front from them at different points in this game, and just making everybody on that offensive line and making everybody on that offense work. If Baltimore was going to get a successful play, it wasn't going to be for lack of effort and a lack of technique and scheme by the Bills. They were making Baltimore have to out-execute them in order to be successful. And we saw the chess match, and the Bills won. Frazier won. The defense won it. We saw just, again, smarts and execution on the field, and that was another example there, combined with a really great individual play from Zimmer.
Yeah, talk about individual plays. You're going to see a bunch of these interior defensive linemen really stand out. And Harrison Phillips, I mean, he's stepped it up since right around the bye week, man. He currently, per Pro Football Focus, I tweeted this out earlier, he ranks 10th in their run stopping percentage.
Oof. And
since the bye, he's ranked 2nd. Oof. And you're going to see that he's healthy, obviously. That is the biggest thing. And one of his best traits all the way back to college at Stanford is a reason why he had so many tackles and tackles for losses at Stanford was his ability to read blocks. And he is right here, just inside the right guard right here. And you got to think about it from a defensive lineman perspective. He is reading the footwork of the offensive line. He's reading the blocking concepts that they're sending at him. And what the Ravens are trying to do is execute a down block with powers and get that center pulling on this play. And just watch how quickly he recognizes the down block coming. Look at his helmet, looking at the center, at the ball. And then as soon as he sees that center move the pull and that down block coming from powers, look where his eyes go. Look where his hands go. That's the most important part. Goes to powers, quick hands, quick arm over spin move or a swim move right there. And he's in the backfield. He's blowing up everything in the backfield there. And you also get the edge defender Murphy on the right-hand side also blowing up the pullers here. Yes. Just create traffic, create disruption. Again, the Bills don't have the biggest defensive front, but if you create and can read blocking schemes like this, use your quickness, use your pad level, as you saw in Zimmer on the last play, the quickness of awareness of Phillips on this play, and Murphy just playing reckless and like playing, like it's his last time being activated in a game. Like, this is what stops run teams like the Ravens. And I mean, just fantastic work, individual play up the middle by Phillips and Murphy on this.
Gum up the works, muddy the waters, just do what you can to cause havoc. And that's what Trent Murphy does on this play. Harrison Phillips's move is beautiful. He pulls off the Michael Phelps swim flawlessly there. It's so quick. It's so beautiful. He gets in clean. And then Murphy, again, setting the edge. That was a big thing. We saw a couple times on that first drive when the Bills were vulnerable to the run. We saw them losing gap integrity, and we saw them not setting the edge really well. That didn't happen after that first drive. Murphy comes off. He lets the first man pass him by, and then just flings his body into the puller and disrupts it and he basically takes out both pullers because he jacks up the first one so hard, and then it allows the rest of the defense to flow to the ball. Edwards has to stop his feet, has to try and find another hole to go to, which is tough because he's got Harrison Phillips right in his face. Rewind it slightly. Yep, there's right there. There's literally nowhere to go. He can do nothing. Even if Gus Edwards could magically stop on a dime and cut to the left, there's more support coming from the Buffalo Bills defense. Yes. If he magically tried to cut to the right, there's nowhere to go on the outside. He can't go straight because that's where Phillips is, and Murphy is taking out the two pullers. There is literally nowhere to go for him. Look at the pursuit, look at the angles, look at the gap integrity and responsibility and the execution discipline from this defense. There is literally nowhere to go on this play for Gus Edwards. He's got nothing. There's no shot.
They have it all covered. Again, they're bringing Hyde on a blitz off the edge, so he could, if Jackson were to come out the back door there, he could pick him up. They have also, if Jackson were to keep it, you have the Epinesa is the edge defender reading the mesh there. Milano's still out the back, the front door there. Like, everything is covered. Again, they committed all of their resources to stopping Lamar Jackson, and you could tell it had success. And they had pretty much, again, I know it's handed off there, but if they wanted to go to a run to Jackson there, they had that covered as well. So let's move into the third quarter here. Take a look at Oliver and Phillips on this play. So you have Oliver right here as a nose tackle, and now you have Phillips right here. And just watch how they win with leverage here, and really just, again, create issues up the middle here as Jackson hands it off. And look out wide. Murphy is out wide. He beats the outside hand of that tackle. So if Lamar wanted to keep this, well, guess what? Murphy's there. You have a free defender right there in Milano. So again, if Jackson keeps this, they're covered. Jackson has to give it because of Murphy if this is an actual zone read. And look up the middle. Look at Oliver off the snap. I mean, it's incredible. Again, you're working against the center. The guard is pulling. You're working against the center. That center cannot handle Oliver's pad level and quickness. He gets leverage on the Ravens side of the line of scrimmage. Then you have Hughes and everyone else just closing in on the running back there. They just have nothing available up the middle.
I love so much what Oliver does on this play in initiating the contact with the center. And if you watch his head from the time of the snap, it's in the backfield directly on Lamar and Dobbins the whole time. He is maintaining proper eye discipline and reading what is going on in front of him, and then playing through the opponent and playing through the man to shut down that lane, have nowhere to go. And then, Jerry crashes off the edge, recognizes the play, and just crashes right down. It's, again, we keep hammering it home, that team defense. And granted, within that team defense, you're going to have individual standouts and players who make plays. And this, granted, it's one play, but Ed Oliver deserves a lot of credit and recognition for the role that he's played this year. He's had to wear many different hats, a lot of which haven't suited the type of technique that he plays and the role that he's supposed to be playing in this defense. With Starr opting out, he's had to do a lot of things. And I know the raw stats haven't been there, but he's had a lot better year than people think. And he's been making plays like this for a decent chunk of the season and needs to be recognized for it.
Yeah, it's a good play, again, from everyone, but there are standout players as well, and they converge on the ball here, but they also have, again, that zone read element covered on both sides. Murphy and Milano to the right, Klein and Hughes to the left. They just had all of their bases covered here. Just a good play from the entire defense, specifically the interior guys in Phillips and Oliver. So let's get to the passing game and some of what they did versus Lamar Jackson. So we talked about at the top the reading of the quarterback's drop. That's important. How far those edge rushers go upfield. You can't go past that spot. And you're going to see a couple of these plays. Watch Jerry Hughes. You see him. He and Addison both basically see that Lamar is hitting the top of his drop. They flatten right there. Let that tackle basically run by him, and then watch him retrace the pocket up the top. He sees Lamar retracing up the pocket, so Hughes does the same, and he's able to force a quick pass because Lamar is probably thinking about coming up the middle and taking off to run it. So he eventually sees Hughes and then has to throw it to his receiver, and it's off target. And look at it from the end zone angle because Ed Oliver played a really important piece to this pass rush. Watch him, maintain the integrity of the pocket is what I call it. You see everyone rushing out wide. I mean, Evan Jefferson's in a 4-eye. That's a wide alignment for a defensive tackle. And there's a big gap right up the middle because of what the Bills were showing there as far as rushing up the field. So you see Lamar probably wanting to take this right here. So what does Oliver do? He knows that. And so he just kind of slides to his left to kind of close down that gap. And so now Lamar's keeping his eyes downfield and trying to make a throw here on what looks like a mesh concept, something the Bills got toasted on from the Colts a couple weeks, 2 weeks ago. But again, Hughes retraces the pocket, and forces the incompletion, Anthony.
Yeah, this is the play earlier when it called to mind the muddled kind of rush that the Bills would do at times. And it's not holistically what they're doing here, but you've got Jefferson and Hughes and Addison all getting upfield, and then you've got Ed Oliver maintaining the integrity of the pocket, like you said, and not trying to get upfield and just playing his role and keeping Lamar hemmed in, keeping his feet active. Exactly.
It's like a spy from the defensive line, and that's something that actually Ed Oliver did in college. So it's a different role that's not played by many defensive linemen, but he can do it because he is, pretty athletic.
Yeah, and with how big that initial gap is because of Jefferson's alignment and how he gets upfield, if Oliver tries to get upfield or tries to be a hero and make a play and goes too wide on the right or the left, Lamar's got an easy angle upfield, but Oliver makes him hesitate enough. And even right there, that snapshot is beautiful. Yep. You've got the Jerry Hughes trace that causes the incompletion. You see Jerry there already, which you highlighted, but Addison is also starting to trace a little bit. So if Lamar happened to go to the play right from our view or from his left, Oliver has a chance to make that play on the angle there.
Yeah,
Addison
that side, yep.
Beautiful. He's already got great technique. Addison is starting to trace. He has a chance to make that play. There's nowhere for Lamar to go. They have him hemmed in. And this game, you mentioned it in our pre-episode notes, this game was about more than just containing Lamar. This game was about shutting him down. And the Bills really did that for all intents and purposes. I know he had the injury and he missed the fourth quarter, but the Bills shut him down. And again, it was because of the holistic effort and focus and scheme that the Bills employed on plays like that throughout the whole game consistently.
Yeah, and we're going to go to a 3rd and long play, 3rd and 14. Another blitz off the edge, another cover zero type look. You have Taryn Johnson and Matt Milano rushing the passer here. And I want you guys to pay attention to the defensive lineman once we get to the end zone angle, because what they did really forces Lamar to throw this. And yes, I know it's 3rd and long. And, you know, but we also know that Lamar is, again, explosive with the ball in his hands, and he can use his legs to get them out of plays like this. I mean, we've seen him do it many times here. So watch from the end zone angle what the defensive linemen all do. They pinch inside here, and because they know how they have Milano coming off the edge and Taryn Johnson. So what does that do? That gaps out the interior defensive gaps right there. So now, you know, Lamar cannot escape through any of these gaps up the middle. And he can't escape outside because you have, again, these guys taking decent angles to the ball. They force him to have to throw it, and he's not ready to throw it, and it's incomplete on the back end. So, again, the Bills' coverage and selling out, as you mentioned, some of their aggressiveness in their play calls and blitzes, and, you know, really not respecting any of the receivers and just going cover zero type look here. It really shows you how much they wanted to attack Lamar and really, like you said, shut him down.
Yeah, this is I love this play. This is the one that I was referencing earlier, that it's a pass blitz, but they run it like a run blitz. Again, when you're run blitzing, you are occupying every gap and not allowing any lane to be open. And they do that here on this play. The angle from Taryn coming from the slot and from Milano on the left side there, there's nowhere to go right there. If you stop it right there, boom, there's nowhere for to go. Lamar cannot step up. He cannot get outside. He cannot do anything. The angles are beautiful. The gap integrity is beautiful. There is nowhere for him to go. So either it has to make a great read or a great throw. And with the Bills' attack mindset this game, it was, we don't think he can do that. Let's make him have to do that to beat us. And he got a couple throws off, but he didn't on this one. And again, with that cover zero, that's not a coverage the Bills run a lot of times. They don't often do sellout blitzes and throw cover zero up behind it. So they changed it up. Unless they're playing Lamar.
Unless they're playing Lamar, to be honest. That's what they did last year.
We talked about the Ravens defense changing up their scheme going against the Bills, and the Bills did it this year against Lamar. And like you mentioned, they did it last year as well. And what's really encouraging about it is, again, to see Leslie Frazier and the Bills defense and Sean McDermott knowing that from week to week, they can tweak their scheme. They can tweak their play calling. They can tweak their game plan and fit it and tailor make it to the type of opponent they're playing and do things that may be considered out of the ordinary or outrun outlier schemes and coverages that they don't normally do, but they know they can win that way. And the fact that they have the horses to execute on the field, it's just a really encouraging thing as far as matchups go.
Yeah, and we're going to get to the interception from Taryn Johnson. It's a play
Taryn Johnson had an interception in this game?
And he took one to the house, believe it or not. It was a play that Josh Allen said that people are going to remember it for a long time in Buffalo because it's potentially a franchise-altering play. He made a similar play against the Steelers when the Bills needed a play in that game. He's another guy that obviously we like. We've broken him down several times in these film rooms. But I love the way he said after the game. He said it's a cover two call. That's nothing special. But what he referenced in calling it a vision, he had vision on Lamar Jackson. That's the type of coverage and scheme that this team plays. They play a lot of zone, but a lot of zone defenses turn to man coverage. It could be pattern matching, those type of coverages. But Jordan Poyer always says that, yes, we have a zone structure. It may be a cover 2 or Tampa 2 call, but they have the leeway to rely on their instincts and jump certain routes that maybe they shouldn't be jumping. And then you saw that in this play. It's a vision-based system. He said he had his eyes on the quarterback, and he trusted his own eyes. And he was, again, the eyes of the quarterback took him right to the ball. What were your thoughts on this play? Obviously, it was a Ravens play in the red zone where they could have tied the game with a touchdown here.
The context of it is so important. I think that's where the franchise-altering aspect comes from it. Again, the Bills had just scored a touchdown on the drive before this to start the second half. So the Bills are up 10-3. And then this is a drive for the Ravens that goes 15 plays, 66 yards, 8 minutes, 48 seconds. It answers the Bills' 11-play, 66-yard, 5-minute and 31-second touchdown drive to start the second half. This is the big thing. The Bills came out and scored, and then the Ravens make some adjustments on their own on this drive. We saw a lot of short and intermediate passing underneath. We saw them taking advantage of holes in the hook zone and the curl flats areas, and just Lamar dumping it down and making a quick read for 5 yards, and his receiver would scramble or run around for another 2 or 3. We saw good adjustments from Baltimore coming out, and they moved the ball right down our throat, and we get the interception here from Taryn Johnson. What I love from this play, aside from the interception and the franchise-altering aspect, is you mentioned one of them, the eyes. As soon as this ball is snapped, Taryn Johnson's eyes never leave Lamar Jackson. He is, beautiful arrow, he is laser focused on what Lamar is doing. He gets to his depth, he sinks into his coverage, and he's just straight reading Lamar and going to where Lamar's eyes lead him. And if you go forward a little bit and stop it there, Lamar is about to throw this ball, and Taryn Johnson, he's about to jump it and pick it and take it to the house. But if Lamar went to the slot where Taryn Johnson was initially lined up, Johnson's positioning is still pretty good that he could make a play on this underneath and maybe get a hand on it or get in the vision a little bit. He drops into such great depth. He makes such a great read, watching Lamar's eyes, playing the zone, knowing his responsibility. And then we get a house call that is one of the coolest things ever, with Trey White leading the charge, knowing that he has to take out Lamar. Zimmer comes out and leads the charge. Poyer comes out and takes out Marquise Brown on the bottom side of the play. It's one of the plays that we'll forever remember in Bills lore and Bills history. And the touchdown aspect is what the finish is going to be. But it was really just a great play from Taryn Johnson, reading the quarterback, playing his man and his responsibility, and just using those zone eyes. I love this. This angle is great because he literally just comes out of nowhere out of the shot and just jumps and takes it. And Andrews is open. This is Lamar's guy. Mark Andrews is his number one dude, especially in the red zone. And it's honestly a good route from Andrews. He gets into the center. Edmonds is dropping into that middle, into the cover 2. So he's got that middle responsibility, a la Brian Urlacher from all those Bears years. And Andrews uses his hands and he gets open. He gets away from Edmonds, and then Johnson just jumps into that shot. And exactly, Nicholas said it in the comments, yoink, and just takes it.
Yeah, it was. It's weird because we talked about today on Twitter. Greg Roman, his passing concepts and his passing offense is something that as Bills fans, we kind of know a lot about. And this is a Tampa 2 defense, but it's also just a spacing concept from the Ravens, which I don't quite understand why you run that in the red zone here. Because the Bills are very good at spacing out their routes. As you can see, everyone is spaced out really well. I know a lot of people were pointing to Boykin right here, but he curls it up and he has a corner underneath and then a safety over the top. Like, everything is spaced really well. And you see Johnson, I like your point of having his eyes on the quarterback here, and he does kind of cheat to Andrew just a little bit late in this read because he's reading the eyes of Jackson here. And what's important on this play is not just Edmonds and Andrew. Watch the route. Let me get to the end zone angle. Watch the route by Andrews here, because I think one play that they love to run, and he's run this a lot even at Oklahoma. you have obviously Edmonds getting to the deep hole here. He generally, and we saw actually, I think later in the game where he runs that deep over out to the back line. And it was broken up by, I believe, Edmonds as well. So I think that's what they're trying to sell to Edmonds. And then you see him just kind of hook it up because the leverage of Edmonds takes it away. So I understand why he wants to go to Andrews there, but he's got to do a better job with his eye discipline in Lamar Jackson there. But just great vision by Taryn Johnson, trusting his instincts against this. Again, I kind of think it's a vanilla call versus the defense of the Bills, and one of their strengths. You're playing to their strengths, and because they always do a great job of spacing out these type of routes, cover these zone beater concepts. And man, the hustle by White, by Poyer, by Zimmer, it was just awesome to see. You see the sideline going nuts. Like, this was an awesome play from Taryn Johnson, and it's a play that, according to Next Gen Stats, Anthony, it's a play that changed the probability of winning from 63% to 93%. So as we felt, it turned around this game. It really sealed the game. And obviously, as you said, it's going to be a play that really goes down in Bill's lore. It really is. It's from a guy that, you know, a lot of fans wanted pulled earlier in the year. He went through some what, you know, Greg called the slump. I don't think he really went through a slump. I think the defense was going through those growing pains, and he was one that was singled out a lot. But that was obviously a big play. But there is one more play I want to talk about. You talked about the Bear defense, and this is the play that knocked Lamar Jackson out. So while, you know, that play by Taryn Johnson was really important and obviously pretty much sealed the game, this play really sealed the game, because after this, Huntley came in, and while he did move the ball a little bit, it was in garbage time basically, because you know, the Bills are playing soft zone. So this is the bad snap, and look at the defensive front. This is the Bills playing basically what is a Bear front, and this is something that the Bills showed several times against Kyler Murray, Russ Wilson. They like to, you know, bust it out versus those read option type teams. And again, watch the down block by the center there. He is trying to down block to his left with the left guard and left tackle pulling, which is, it's tough to do because this time he's not blocking Harrison Phillips. He has to get all the way out wide on Jerry Hughes because Edmonds is also coming. So this scheme, this play call stressed the center here so much that he blew his initial responsibility, and that's get the ball to the quarterback in the shotgun here. Goes up and over, and then again, you know, you get into the scramble drill right here, and the big hit from Murphy and Edmonds. I mean, you saw the hit that Edmonds laid on him a few plays ago. Edmonds came at Lamar Jackson there, wraps up his legs, and then Murphy finishes him off, and unfortunately, Jackson's helmet, you know, bounces off the turf there. But that was his last play of the game. But as you mentioned earlier, you know, the aggressiveness from Leslie Frazier and the hustle by these guys really is what forced the center to create an error here.
Yeah, I love the Bear front, and I love your point on that's a stressful move. This center has to go over two spots, and he has to get Jerry Hughes, which Jerry Hughes is a good pass rusher and a good run defender, and that's stressful in and of itself. And he has to get through Phillips, get through the garbage. He launches it over Lamar. And again, I know it's a bad snap, and I know it's a loose ball, but the angles are what gets me. The angles that Edmonds and Murphy take, Murphy doesn't take too sharp of an angle to the point that if Lamar picks this up, he can run outside Murphy and get upfield and try and throw it away, because that's also the big thing too here. Lamar can get this ball, and if Edmonds and Murphy don't take the right angle, he can get outside the pocket and just throw it away, and then we're still looking at 2nd and 10, and there's
no loss earlier in the game. Yeah,
correct. He did it early on in the game, exactly. They don't let him do that. They're either going to get him down for a sack, or they're going to cause an intentional grounding, which is what they do. It's aggressive and it's good scheme. But again, it's smart, heady team defense for them knowing, like, okay, let's just not let him get outside. The Murphy angle there is beautiful. And it's something that he did all game, whether it was against the run, whether it was against the read option, whether it was against the pass, him setting the edge and making life difficult for whoever was coming his way. And then Edmonds on the other side, playing fast, playing aggressive. He takes a great angle on that. Something that I personally was very critical of Tremaine Edmunds early in the year, not taking the proper angles to the football, whether in the run or in his blitzes. He would often over pursue or take too shallow of an angle and get beat, which he shouldn't because of his size and his speed and athleticism. If he just takes a halfway decent angle, he's a monster. And we see on that play, he does more than that. He takes a beautiful angle to Lamar. And again, he's hemmed in. He has nowhere to go. He makes a desperate heave. I feel bad that he ends up getting the concussion, but that whole play happens because of the stress the Bills defense in the front puts on the center, the crowd, the entire aspect of the game, and the Lamar aspect comes from great execution and hustle and effort and angle from Murphy and Tremaine Edmunds.
Yeah, great points, man. And we appreciate everyone tuning into this film breakdown. I know it was heavy on the defensive side, but I mean, when you put a game script like that together by Leslie Frazier and you execute at that level on the field in a divisional playoff game, it really deserves some attention. If you're looking for more of the offensive side for the breakdowns, well, you're in luck. Tomorrow, Nate and I will be breaking down Josh Allen in the film room, of course. We're going to be talking about what Martindale, the defensive coordinator for Ravens, did to Josh Allen and the Bills, and why there were some lulls in the offense. Kind of 2 weeks in a row, but Josh was, at least versus the Colts, was able to get outside the pocket, make some explosive plays. The Ravens did a good job, as we talked about, keeping him in the pocket. So if you're looking for those breakdowns, make sure to tune in tomorrow on the Cover One YouTube channel at 7 o'clock. We're going to be rolling. Hopefully my remote works by then, Anthony, because I was standing here for a good 15, 20 minutes trying to get it to work before we went live, and it wouldn't. That Huddle remote is gold. If you guys don't have one, you watch a lot of film, I suggest you get one. Just give yourself some time to get the Bluetooth connect, because sometimes there are issues in that regard. So, Anthony, let everyone know where they can follow you on social media and what day you're dropping your pod this week.
Beautiful. So again, I am Anthony, part of the Cover One Sports Network, host of Disguise Coverage. You can find Disguise Coverage live every Thursday night at 9 p.m. And you can find me on Twitter, the old Twitter, at @pro__ant. That's pro, 2 underscores, ANT. And again, Disguise Coverage live Thursdays at 9 p.m., including this Thursday. And you can find that on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, here on YouTube in an audio only and video stream form. Join us, join me. It's a lot of fun. Many thanks to you again, Eric, for having me on again for the film room. I love the film room. This is multiple weeks in a row. Good vibes, good energy. And thank you to everybody in the comments on this episode, much like what we've been doing every single week. Just tons of support from you guys, whether it's the donations or the likes or retweets or just word of mouth, and then the encouraging comments we see here and all the thank yous and the support that you guys show for us. I love it. Eric loves it, and the whole team really appreciates it. It's what keeps us going and allows us to keep doing what we're doing. So thank you guys again for everything. It means a lot.
Yeah. Good words, man. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. I'm Eric Turner. That's Anthony Prohaska. We will see you tomorrow. Again, tomorrow, Josh Allen Film Room, Nate Geary, and I will see you tomorrow. Thanks for tuning in.